What happens when a successful television producer suffering from chronic depression finds yoga? She finds herself. For Amy Weintraub, it was yoga and writing that saved her life. After a successful career in television broadcasting, Amy found the work she did and awards she received could not alleviate her chronic depression. It wasn't until practicing yoga daily that she was able to get off medication by getting on the mat. Finding joy in the world once again, she began writing for magazines and then writing books of her own. Today, Amy is passionate about sharing what helped her heal with others who suffer.
Thank you so much, Amy Weintraub, for taking this time to share this space to share your story. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Allie. It's my pleasure. My story changed my life and influenced me to help others change theirs. So, yeah, I'm happy to share.
Well, I'm excited for you to do so. And generally, I like to start at the beginning of a story, but today, let's start a chapter or two in, because even with a successful career as a talented TV producer, you, Amy, suffered with chronic depression. So I would love for you just to share your story of getting off meds by getting on the mat.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it, Allie. I had a successful career in television, you're right. And then I gave that up and was writing fiction. And you know the amount of rejection that can involve, fiction writing. And so that didn't help things. But even before, in that career that seemed on the surface successful, I was having cocktails at lunch, smoking cigarettes, living a lifestyle that was almost, like a generation later, a Mad Men, that kind of commercial television life. And when I really went downhill and was on antidepressants, and was in psychotherapy for many years. And at one point, I discovered a catalog. I was collecting mail for a friend who was in the Canary Islands, and I found this catalog for Kripalu. And even though I had meditated years before that, I had been, and I'd even been with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi doing transcendental meditation at the University of Massachusetts for a month. And it helped. It did help, but I sort of fell off the wagon with that. What I needed was a physical practice. So I saw this catalog and I said, oh, there's programs. It's only 3 hours from where I lived at the time, which was in Rhode Island, Newport. I can go up to the Berkshires. So I went up there and they were using fluffy pink blankets. There were no yoga mats at the time. This was a while ago. And I started doing the yoga practice and I came home feeling radiant and alive. And then I thought, well, I'm going to go back up there. So I went back up. There were no yoga classes in Newport at the time. So I went back up and I started volunteering. And then I started buying their DVDs and CDs and started practicing at home. And that made a huge difference. I practiced every day with a tape or a videotape or some prop that helped me get to the mat. And I started feeling better and better. And I talked to my psychiatrist, as I talk about in Yoga for Depression, my first book, and said, I am feeling so good. I wonder if I need to still be on this medication. And, God bless her, she thought that the medication was what was making me feel better, that I was finally stabilized on that medication, and she refused to titrate me off of it. So I really felt so much better that even though there's transference in a relationship like that, because we did talk therapy as well, I ended up terminating with her and starting with a friend's psychiatrist. He saw me for a couple months and he said, I don't see you as a candidate for this medication. And we slowly titrated me off of it while I was doing a daily practice. And that I think is really key for anybody who's considering going off medication, is that you don't go cold turkey, especially with SSRIs, because you get worse before you get better. There's even that little black box code on the products that say, the risk of suicide is enhanced when you go off the medication. So you really need to titrate slowly and with supervision, which is what I did. And that was it was a long time ago. That was in 1989, and I have not been on medication since. And I manage my mood with my practice, my daily practice, which at first was not about meditation. I needed that physical aspect of yoga. I needed that breathing practice and sound, nada yoga. I needed all of those things before I could still the mind enough to meditate.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. So let's get a little specific here for a moment. Of all the benefits in all the poses that yoga offers, question is, what is your go-to? Is there one specific position, one specific pose that you find the most benefit in?
That's a really good question, because it depends on my mood. So if I'm feeling a little bit low energy, I want a heart opening pose. It'll be a go-to back bend. So it could be camel, or it could be cobra, lifting my heart, opening my chest. But I include with that some breathing practice. It's not just the asana of a heart opening pose. It also has sound. I use nada yoga. So, for example, when you're on your belly in something like cobra or baby cobra, sphinx pose, you have the opportunity to activate that second chakra, which is often dormant in depression. The sound, as we know from the chakras, is VUM. If we use it in a repeated way, like we're revving a motor, it actually energizes the second chakra, grounding it and energizing it, which, if anyone has ever been on an SSRI, you know that it affects your sexual response. And so we want more energy in that second chakra. If we're depressed, we want more energy in that second chakra. So pose, I would say a back bend like cobra, or even bow pose, or a heart opening pose like camel. The other thing, if I'm feeling revved up, then I want to do a forward bend to calm me down. So that would be my one pose, would be something like, for me, pigeon. That's that's very calming and soothing, and I would use a calming tone with it, like oh, for the first and second chakra. Or if I wanted to do the whole series of calming tones, o, u, ah, a, e, as I practice the pose to enhance the benefits.
That is so fascinating. Just to say that it's not just which pose is taken, but how it's taken. So, like with what, as you say, with what sound you're using to amplify it. So awesome. So in addition to practicing yoga, you write about it, and you've written books, as you mentioned, entitled Yoga for Depression, Yoga Skills for Therapists. You've also written cards, Yoga for Your Mood, that card deck. So what is it that these cards contain that help people shift depression and anxiety?
Well, first of all, it's a system, this card deck. So if you have revved up mood, like you're really anxious or just kind of like nervous, and we all are. I mean, given what's happening in the world, we all have a level of anxiety. So if someone says to you, just take a deep breath or watch your breath coming in and out through your nostrils, it can rev you up even more. So what the premise of the card deck is to first pick a red card, a red indication of meeting the mood, meeting that anxious mood. So you do something more active, and then take a blue card to calm the energy down. And even in the active cards, and the instructions are on the back, but when we're doing something active, it then gives you two more tools. One is to do a mini body scan so that it grounds the energy. So you're not just continuing to rev the energy up more, but it grounds the energy. And then to do a grounding breath, which is, if you're seated, inhale from seat to crown, I am. Exhale to your seat here, grounded, ready. So that system also would meet depression by starting with a blue card that meets that more lethargic mood, and then pulling a red card that increases the energy. So if we simply try to get someone who's a couch potato who can't, like get up to change the batteries in their remote or whatever, can't get off the couch, they're not going to do 108 sun salutations. It might be great for them. They're also not going to go for a run around the park. They're going to want to do a practice that is simple and easy, and they can do in bed or on the couch. And then that gives them enough energy to begin to move, to begin to think about doing something more active.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I am excited to explore that deck and see and feel what it's about. So as an author, let's talk about the writing side of things. You are a writer of poetry, short stories, articles, many articles, books, as we mentioned, but there's more. A novel of awakening and connection. You know where I'm going now. Temple Dancer, and as it states, is a lush read and a richly atmospheric journey deep into the history and magic of female sacred sexuality and spiritual transcendence. Yes, please. Insert on my reading list. Let me just say that right now.
Yeah. Well, the core story, which is set between 1938 and 1947 in India, was at the very end of 2,000 years of sacred temple dance. The Devadasi tradition, they were sacred dancers. They did life cycle rituals like tying the tali around the gold tali around the bride's neck. They were responsible for putting the deities to bed and changing their costumes, and the sculpture in the temples. And they also were trained as sacred dancers, which meant they had more education than most women who were married off at 13, 14, puberty, and were pretty much slaves in their mother-in-law's homes, because that's just the way the culture went. And so one way out was the Devadasi tradition. They were empowered. They received gold and cattle and land from their patrons. They were like geisha, so they were consorts to often wealthy men, and they considered each man they were with, and usually it was just, they weren't like with a number of them, they were with a person who sort of supported them. Each one was their god. They were dedicated to the goddess, and they looked at their work, both their sexual work and their dance, which was what we know of now as classical Indian dance, Bharatanatyam. They looked at it as sacred work. And in 1947, well, what happened for me was that I was in a feminist's office in a number of years ago in India. She's a fiction writer and an academic, and she was part of a collective of women who were raising funds for the beedi rollers in Karnataka, which is very poor women, often who are still, even though it's illegal, dedicated to the goddess Yalama to become Devadasi, which now simply means sex workers, because they had been thrown out of the temples in 1947. That's a whole other story. So I was looking, they had put together a calendar of photographs of women and girls who had been or were about to be dedicated to the goddess. And there was a picture, you know how sometimes you see a painting like maybe of Jesus and the eyes follow you, or you know, yeah, I mean, you feel like no matter where you are in the room, the eyes are looking at you. So this, I think she was 5 or 8. I think, well, anyway, Rohini, this picture of a girl with curly, knotted hair, which was a sign that you were supposed to be dedicated to the goddess, was about to be dedicated. Now, that doesn't mean she would have sex. They would wait till puberty, but she was about to be dedicated, and her face just spoke to me. And I was standing in my friend Lakshmi's office with tears rolling down my face. And I was just, so when I got back to the US, I started researching Devadasi culture. And I lived near Wesleyan University, which was that has the largest world music program in the country, and with plenty of master's thesis and dissertations on the Devadasi and the tradition. And I pored over those, and with what happened was I had this sense. Now, many authors will say this to you, but you know, when you're really in the zone of writing fiction, I felt that the story of Saraswati was channeled through me. An 8-year-old voice just came through me. She was adopted by a Devadasi when her mother died, and she was trained in the tradition, and she went into ecstatic trances when she danced, and felt herself lifted up and connected to the divine. I have always loved dance, and I think when I was 8 years old, I had experiences like that, just dancing outside. And so whether it was it felt like it was received. And so that story came through me, and I've written a number of American frames around it, and this current one, which seems to be successful, is about a clinical social worker going through a divorce and deciding to go to India on a pilgrimage, and she meets an elderly person on a train who's kind of wispy and mystical, and she disappears, and in her place, when it is left a diary. And so the contemporary story is woven together with this story from the end of the Devadasi era.
It sounds fantastic. And to just have that personal inspiration from so long ago to now resurrect that and be able to, as you say, to be able to pour that story through you, not just by you, but through you.
That's what it felt like. And at the end of the Temple Dancer, I have author's notes, and I tell that story and other stories that pointed me in this direction. I won't go into them, but they happened in India, and it just it just felt like I was pointed in the direction of writing this story. And it's actually, my next meeting today is with my executive producer, because it's now a screenplay, although the frame is very different. Doesn't mean it's going to get produced, as most screenplays don't, but the attempt is to see Saraswati on the big screen, because one of the things she tells Wendy in the book is, you need to tell the world how we danced with God. Because currently, if you look up Devadasis or temple dances in India, they're basically shunned as whores, and most of the generation of girls who were in the hereditary chain of Devadasis have no idea what their ancestral lineage, their matriarchal lineage has been. And social groups try to save these young girls and train them in math and science, which is great, and computers, great, but there's no honoring of their gifts, and no dance classes or music classes, so it's a mixed bag over there and in this country, and always has been. I mean, women who have this sense of sacred spiritual sexuality, it's been tamped down by the patriarchy, in so many cultures, not just Indian.
Perhaps it is this book that will resurrect that fire and that need to say, let's take a look at the narrative that's been written, and perhaps there's a different version we need to explore.
Yes, that was the whole reason for that book. It's not that I hadn't written novels before, mostly all unpublished, except for some of them have been chopped up and made and have been, sold as short stories, and also have won awards as short stories. But my novels, except for this one, have never been published. And the whole journey for me at this point is to see Saraswati really at this point on the big screen, so that the Devadasi culture and tradition is honored.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, excited to dive in and to read this story. So let's close this conversation with a question about advice that you might have. Let's go back to the subject we had started with, which is that of depression. These days, it's ever present.
Yes, ever.
For those who deal with chronic depression, as you did, and who want to write a new chapter in their life with less anxiety and more ease, what advice do you have? I mean, where should they begin?
Well, I would say either find a yoga teacher or yoga therapist whom you trust, it's not about promoting my deck, but these are 2 to 5 minute practices that can transform your energy. So finding something, it doesn't have to be rolling out a yoga mat and practicing for an hour or an hour and a half. It can be 2 to 5 minutes to clear your space, to remove the obstructions, so that you can invite in what you want to enhance in your life. So whether it's peace or clarity or joy, you clear the space so that you're able to feel that which is who you truly are, your own true nature, which is unsullied by the traumas and everything that's happened to you. You have that ability within yourself to find that place that's whole and healed, and you can do it in 2 to 3 minutes.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that you have. I Is there another thing that you would like to share? You had said, what would you mind to walk us through one of these practices, one of these?
Sure. Yeah, if you don't mind, I would do a bellows breath, which helps clear the space, and then a simple, pull back a little bit, simple, using a mudra and a mantra. We'll use, would you prefer something for peace, shamaya, or something to enhance calm strength as a way to end?
How about
We need both.
we need both. How about peace more than anything?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay, so peace. So the mantra will be Shamaya, Shamaya, and it comes from the sh sound, Shanti, peace. It's also what we say to children, shh, and the m sound, the ma sound is much, mama, ama, ma. It's that sound of a mother, and it's a closing syllable at the end of most mantras, and then the y sound is the vibration for the heart. So we'll be doing, after we do bellows breath, which I'll show you in just a second, we're going to be bringing the hands to the heart with Shamaya. So it'll look like this. Shamaya. And I'm going to suggest that you and whoever is watching think about an image that for you represents peace. It could be an image from nature. It could be a face, a deity. And if an image doesn't readily arise, it could be a sense, a color, or a word like peace. Mm-hmm. And the image, as we'll do it 3 times, and the image may change, and that's okay. The image may change as we do it. It doesn't have to stay static. Or you may not have an image and then suddenly an image arises. But first I'd like to clear the space with 1 round of bellows breath, which we'll do slowly. It's an inhale up, so I'm spreading my fingers wide. Exhale down. And it's through the nostrils. And once you've got it, it's fine to allow your eyes to close. And we'll do maybe 15. And then we'll do a mudra, which is a calming, grounding mudra. It's called Adi Mudra. Thumbs go into the palms, fingers wrap around, the knuckles are straight, and then your hands are on your knees. And that's a very grounding, because this is more elevating, sympathetic activity. This is more parasympathetic, so we're balancing. And then we will be doing, and then we can retain the breath or not. So if it feels uncomfortable to retain or pause the breath inside, don't do that. Just do the mudra, okay? So you can follow along. So if this is in position, my hands will be outside, but it's going to look like this. And by the way, if you've got shoulder issues, you can go forward and back. You can also just do this, if you prefer. So, but that's what my hands are doing when they go all the way up, but you won't be able to see them. Okay, so inhaling, exhaling, just kind of roll the shoulders back, and fists in position in front of the shoulders. Inhale for a moment, just a nice breath in, let it go, and let's begin. Inhale, exhale. Three more. 2, 1. Inhale, hold the arms up for a moment, Exhale 3 times through the mouth, coming forward. Navel to spine, with the hands on the knees, come up, empty, and then allow the breath to find you. Take an integrating breath in, a complete breath out. Adi Mudra, thumbs inside the palms, fist face down on the knees. If you'd like, you can inhale to 2/3 capacity, but not so you're straining. Letting the energy circulate. Listening to your body's call. Not over holding the breath, but just pausing the breath. Allow your breath to find you again, softening, feeling the energy shimmering in the palms, left, right. Sense the whole left arm, perhaps tingling, the whole right arm. This is your birthright, this energy. We're just creating more room inside for you, for your authentic expression of self, unsullied, whole. And from this place, perhaps an image for peace arises in your heart's mind. And if it doesn't immediately arise, then just perhaps think the word. There's no wrong way to do this. And then inhale your arms out in front of your heart. See the image if you have one, or the word. We'll draw it to the heart with Shamaya. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Embrace that image or word. Shamaya. And one more time. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Embrace that image. Draw it in. Shamaya. And give your heart a little rock. The image, the word on the altar of your heart. There, whenever you need it. There to share it in this world that is so in need of your peace. And when you're ready, you can allow your eyes to flutter open.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was really, really beautiful.
Yeah. Something like that. Didn't time it, but we did 2 little practices together, probably under 4, maybe 4 minutes. I don't know. Just shifts everything.
Yeah.
It shifts. Yeah.
And instantly, without trying to overcomplicate and get it right, but just to be present with it and to do it. Felt really nice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Allie. Thank you for this opportunity to meet you and talk with you and share with your folks some practices that have literally saved my life.
So awesome. Thank you for sharing your story, for sharing your practice. Thank you for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you so much.